Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Normal Days. I am your host, Guillermo. For this episode, I had the chance to talk with Marco Sgalbazzini of 6am Group and Synthetik Minds. This interview took place the week of Louis Fauci, Mike Parker, and Motionin in LA this past August, which was an event that Marco helped organize. 6am Group and Synthetik Minds are multifaceted events and media entities based out of Los Angeles, California. Within this interview, we find out what Marco does within the companies and why he does it. Marco gives an insight on his first promoter and event organizer experience with House of Shy in Chicago and his evolution towards his first Synthetik Minds party in LA. He also gives some surprises about upcoming events in December and next year's 2-year anniversary for Synthetik Minds. This episode's mix is brought to you by yours truly, but not entirely. I asked Marco to send me a list of artists that he enjoys, so I can curate a mix specifically for his interview. This mix includes records by Alfredo Mazzilli, Claudio PRC, Deep Bass, Donato Dozzi, Joaquim Spieth, and more. I had fun with this style of records and had an awesome conversation with Marco as well. Make sure to follow 6am Group and Synthetik Minds on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay updated with their endeavors. So with that being said, let's get into the Marco Sgalbazzini episode. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Normal Days. This is episode 2, and we're here with Marco as a guest today. I'm your host, Guillermo. So, Marco, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
From my understanding, how do you pronounce your last name? That's something that might be intriguing for others.
Yes, although I don't really have my last name like blasted out on social media or anything at the moment, it's pronounced Sgalbazzini.
Sgalbazzini.
That's correct. It's easier to pronounce than it is when you just read it, but once you hear it, you kind of pick it up a lot easier.
True, it's pretty interesting. I was kind of questioning myself how to pronounce it as well too, so I was kind of practicing on the way over here. So
No, you got it down.
So from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were born in Italy, and you came to the U.S. in 2010 for college in Chicago, specifically DePaul University, and you currently reside in Los Angeles.
That's correct, yes.
Tell us a little bit of your years in Italy, basically your youth until Chicago.
Cool. So I was born in Italy to Italian parents in 1986. And I lived in Italy until I was 12. So I just had a normal childhood growing up, going to school, playing football, soccer for Americans. And when I was 12, my mother moved to England. So she took my sister and I with her. My parents have been divorced since I was a young kid, maybe 3 years old or so. And then I grew up in England from the age of 12 till I was 21. And then I decided to move back to Milan to be near my mother because she had moved back. So I moved back to Milan in 2008. And I worked there for a year, and then I got a job at an Italian company that had an office out in Chicago. And eventually that's what brought me out there. And I loved the city so much, I finally had the opportunity to go to college, and I chose to stay in Chicago.
Nice. That's pretty interesting. So 4 years in Milan prior to Chicago.
2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
2 years from 2008 till 2010.
Okay, that's true. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself because you started House of Shy in 2012 with a partner, Eli Reed. No, Elwin Reed.
That's correct.
Reed. Yes.
In 2012 when I was in college, I just partying, going to clubs, going to various techno house events and EDM events. Out there, I met Elwin, who's originally from California, actually. And we started to just have a lot of people going out to shows with us. And we realized that we had this group of friends that we were meeting on dance floors. We started a Facebook group. And in this Facebook group, we were sharing tracks, mixes, news, and all sorts. And once we realized kind of what we had in our hands, almost just organically without even trying, we were like, well, why don't we turn this into something bigger? So we started House of Shy, house, because house music, Chicago, the birthplace of house, but also a home for people where they could find friendships, they could find new music and people to go out to events with. And then we started promoting shows various clubs in the city, like the Mid, Soundbar, and then eventually Spy Bar, which became our kind of our mainstay in our home for a lot of years, actually up until earlier this year. So even after I moved to Los Angeles, House of Shy continued operating in Chicago as Spy Bar and doing the one-off events. And it's still a community. It's still a group. The group on Facebook exists. And a lot of the people that met in that group are now really close friends. We've been to each other's weddings. We've just become really close friends outside of the dance floor, on top of just always meeting at festivals and events and so on. So
do you still currently throw events in Chicago under House of Shy?
Not really under House of Shy, since we stopped working with Spy Bar earlier this year. But House of Shy and myself are in a way involved in a collective, I guess you could call it, called Obscure. And Obscure is 6 people involved in the nightlife industry in Chicago that came together just under 2 years ago to kind of try to bring something a little bit different to the city of Chicago musically, mainly focusing on doing underground events, but also some club nights or nights in off-site locations. So we do maybe events once a month or so.
Nice. So what was your, if you can recall, your first experience with electronic music, specifically, or not to generalize, but, house and techno?
The very first experience that I remember, was listening to BBC Radio 1 back in England. I think it was in the early 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003. At the time, I was only listening to rock, indie rock, and alternative. It was on the radio. I was in a car, and I remember listening to Pete Tong and his show, and that's when I started to kind of get into it. But it wasn't really that big of a passion, or as much a part of my daily life until I came to the States. But I was already a fan and going to shows back when I was in Europe.
Okay, so you basically, well, you first attended events, of course, like any person, maybe, so you got experience. Were you attending any events in Chicago that maybe made you specifically like, okay, this is something I would really want to, even if it was like a minor show, it doesn't have to be like a big festival?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was clubbing and going to events in Chicago, as well as festivals every weekend. And so that's how things really started. It's, I was a college student, but I was older. And I loved electronic music, and I loved going to shows. And, this was also the heydays of EDM, as you want to call it. So there was a big boom of electronic music in the States at the time. We're talking 2012, 2013. So that's kind of like when I was really going to shows a lot. I cannot pinpoint one exact event. I remember there was a summer where, we were going out 2-3 times a week on the weekends, and just partying and discovering DJs and listening to new DJs, and just on SoundCloud all day and on YouTube. And then, as I said, the group thing with House of Shy just happened without trying, organically, and then it just became a passion that was a mixture of the music, but also I was a business major, so I wanted to start a business, and then I just realized I was really good at bringing people together, at social media. So House of Shy was like a combination of all of that coming together.
And you said that you were a business major. What was your main focus when you were attending school, or what were you trying to get out of it as a degree?
I chose business management as my degree, and I concentrated in entrepreneurship. So I guess right from the get-go, I wanted to own a business, or be able to launch a business, or at least have that entrepreneurial streak in the way I did things. So thinking outside the box, being able to come up with interesting things and ideas, whether I was the owner of the business or whether I was an employee.
Kind of like basically what you're doing right now too,
Pretty much.
Your career, what you're known for is basically entrepreneurship, especially with all the events that you're doing and what we see online and everything. So you did mention that you're throwing events in Chicago under Obscure.
Mm-hmm.
For the most people like myself, we know you as an event organizer, marketing manager in LA for 6 a.m. and Synthetik Minds. How did your co-ownership with 6 a.m. begin?
I'm not a co-owner at 6am. I am a partner at 6am. 6am is a company that was started over 10 years ago by Jia Wang. So it's been around for 10 and a half years now. Our 10-year anniversary was in March. So he started the company, and I came into it when I moved to LA as a contributing writer for the blog. So 6am is a multifaceted company. It does a lot of things and has evolved over the years. It started as kind of like House of Shy, promoting club nights in the LA area. But it then evolved into having a kind of a news outlet, a blog online, 6amgroup.com. And then that evolved into throwing our own events and doing various services for the music industry.
That's how I kind of came across from you. I think I even followed House of Shy before. I think I even followed your personal
Nice.
accounts and whatnot. And little by little, I was following 6 a.m. and I saw some articles on 6 a.m. and I saw the authors because I went to school for, media, communication studies, media, emphasis on media studies. So there's a lot of journalism and whatnot.
Right.
So I was always interested in who's writing these articles, and kept seeing you pop up. And then little by little, seeing, put the face to the name.
Right.
Then I would see you at events as well too.
Yeah, so that's exactly the way it started for me. It was just writing these articles, and I never thought that it would develop into anything bigger. But eventually, a few months later, the guy that was the head of the blog, his day job took over, and he wasn't able to continue. And so I stepped up, took responsibility for overseeing the whole editorial aspect of our news site online.
Little content director.
Pretty
Yes.
much, yeah.
Okay.
That's how the title content director came about. And then thing kind of snowballed when I went to Amsterdam Dance Event 2 years ago. I went and I just was engulfed by these massive techno events, the massive production, the lineups, the enthusiasm of people on the dance floor. And obviously 6 a.m. had already been doing a couple of events a year, maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
But I came back and I told Gia, like, hey, like, we need to step it up. We can bring more of what I just experienced over here, bigger lineups, more lineups, bigger production. Let's get more involved. Let's spearhead this movement. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of other people that were doing great, amazing things, and that have been for years. LA's techno scene, has been an inspiration for me personally as a music fan, and then later as a member of the industry. But I wanted to be involved, and I wanted to be able to do my part. And that's what happened. I came back from ADE, and Gia was like, let's do it. You could start booking the talent. Let's put these events together. And that escalated to basically me now kind of heading the events for 6 a.m. in LA also, and then launching Synthetic Minds, which is my personal brand, which is only techno focused here in LA, but also we've been doing some events in Detroit, in Chicago,
True.
and soon hopefully other cities.
You said you mentioned you went to Amsterdam 2 years ago. Was that your first time going to Amsterdam specifically for ADE?
No, I had been once before,
Okay.
back when I lived in Europe, but that was more of like extended weekend with friends during AD, going to some of the events, but not really being involved and not really taking it in as a member of the industry. And at the time, although I loved electronic music, I also just partied. You know what I mean? There was those years where you just partied, and like you had favorite DJs, and I remember seeing Digweed at one of those shows, and I remember going to a techno show. I couldn't even tell you who was on the lineup. I just went to party. Maybe it was a mixture of which venues looked coolest and that kind of stuff. But then we also did a lot of non-AD related stuff while we were there. Whereas 2 years ago when I went, it was I'm here for ADE.
Specifically.
Yes,
Strictly.
and that's what I did. I mean, I checked out the city and of course took in some of the sites, but ADE was my focus.
That's what I saw, I believe last year or it was 2 years ago. I know because I follow you and Gia, and I saw you guys' stories and posts, and basically what I considered it was like a business, and of course there's that leisure side of it that comes with it.
Yeah.
But
Well, the first year when I went that I was just telling you about, it was without Gia, and I went as a member of 6 a.m. and I had artist interviews and all of that, but it wasn't as business focused as last year. Last year is when Gia came for his first time. And that's the year that we really took it upon ourselves, having already started to ramp up the events, our content, and our service offerings. We really took it upon ourselves to meet as many people as we could. So we had something like 37 meetings in a couple of days, one after the other, artists, agents, managers, PR agencies, you name it. We tried to really get our name out there, get 6 a.m.'s name out there, but also LA to let people know that in LA that really is this passion for techno and house, although we have been focusing on techno, but just electronic music in general. And that we wanted to be focal point in the consideration of people worldwide, basically.
You said you founded Synthetik Minds,
Mm-hmm.
and that's strictly techno events. And of course, I've gone to some Synthetik Minds events, and they're awesome.
Thank you.
Why did you start it, and what is your mission? Well, you said you started it, I'm guessing, well, this is me probably assuming that you started it, to just book strictly techno events and just have that techno environment and people, or that techno outlet, because there's people who maybe experience techno for the first time going to one of your events. So what would be your mission and goal for it?
Well, there's some confusion sometimes with people because they see 6am and I'm involved with 6am, and then they see Synthetik Minds and I am Synthetik Minds. So to clarify that, really, I am a member of 6am. I am a partner, and I drive the event series, but 6am isn't genre focused. Although we have been doing more techno events, we've also done events featuring tech house, we've done events featuring house. We've promoted events around the LA area that have anything that back in the day used to be called underground music. By that we mean not main stage music, not EDM. So tech house, deep house, even electronica. That's what 6am covers as a blog, and even as far as events. With Synthetik Minds, I wanted to have my own little baby where I could invest my time and money and only focus it on techno because that's my favorite genre. That's where my biggest passion is. And I wanted to specifically brand it as such. And so Synthetik Minds, when it first started, it wasn't even doing events with 6am. It was doing events with a lot of other really great promoters in LA, like Value Sound, who have an event next week, with Ruse, with LA Structures. Jeremy Sina is a great friend of mine. So I wanted to partner up with these people and start doing these events. And then eventually that led to getting the opportunity, thanks to Gia, to do events with him. And kind of that snowballed into us just forming this great partnership where Synthetik Minds and 6am do a lot of great events together, but not always together. 6am does events with other companies without Synthetik Minds, and Synthetik Minds does events with other companies without 6am.
For example, the past weekend, Madhouse and 6am.
Perfect example, Madhouse and 6am, it was tech house focused event. So it wasn't within the branding of Synthetik Minds. And so whilst I could have been a financial partner and, gotten something out of it, because the branding and the message of Synthetik Minds is important to me, I felt that wasn't appropriate. Similarly, 6am has done events with Incognito, as an example. They've been partners for years. So there's times when they don't partner with Synthetik Minds because it's their own series or their own partnership. So there's just times when it's appropriate for us to all partner together. There's times when it's more appropriate for me to partner, for example, with LA Structures for more of the deeper, nuanced and more hypnotic kind of techno. So we've done a bunch of parties together, which are not as fitting to the 6am sound. They could be, but it's more fitting to the kind of more intimate vibe that Synthetik Minds and Structures provide. So with each event, with each booking, I try to see what the branding for that event is and who the best promoters behind it will be. And sometimes it's multiple, sometimes it's only a couple, and it doesn't involve some of the other ones.
Man, that's cool. I didn't even know how really and this is why the purpose of this interview is to really kind of get behind the scenes in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what really goes in your mind, and I guess brainstorming to be able to choose what artist, what night, what event, and how you said promoters, for example, Ruse, not Synthetik Minds, Ruse, and Value Sound.
Right.
Value Sound, I think I went to not sure if they threw a New Year's Eve party. It was a Value Sound with somebody else, and I think
was it with Rico?
Yes.
That was actually my first party that I was involved in.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So at the time, a little quick story, but at the time, that's right after I came back from that first AD. So I came back in November, that New Year's Eve party. I was asked by the guys at Value and Ruse if I wanted to participate in promoting it. Synthetic Minds wasn't yet launched. It was a concept that I had in my head.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a great way to test out how it would be to be involved in the LA market and to see how these great people that I respect work. I found that everybody that was behind these events, this specific event on New Year's Eve, was great as a person and great to work with. So that was my first experience actually, and it was a great little New Year's Eve party. It was pretty banging.
It was awesome. Yeah, I went with a couple of friends, and it was awesome because it was a intimate spa. It was like low key, but it was just sometimes. And that the cool thing about going to these underground events or these discreet events that you attend these places that you're like, what? I didn't know this existed. What's
Right.
So it's surreal, but it's real because it's
Right.
there. So it's awesome.
Part of a big part of this entire operation is finding these venues, these cool, unique spaces that can be used for events. Always making sure safety is top of mind. Always making sure that we can provide a good sound system and a good experience for. First and foremost for the people on the dance floor, but also for the visiting artists. So we had actually lost the venue for that show a couple of days before. So we scrambled a couple of days before New Year's Eve to find the spot to host this Rico, this artist coming from Spain.
Yeah.
So it was pretty stressful, not gonna lie, but it paid off in the end. It was a great way to welcome in the new year.
So that venue that we, partied out. So that wasn't the original venue?
No.
Oh, okay.
That happens more often than not.
Well, frequently, I think. Recently. Not sure if it was last month, but you guys had an event that that day of. You guys had to.
It's
switch.
happened before. It's even happened with some bigger parties when we had Josh Wink and Abdullah Rashim, Anthony Leno earlier this year. Yeah. We lost the venue that day, so we had to find another one. More recently, yes, there was one party where a couple of 30 minutes before we were meant to open, we were unable to use it. So it required finding a new spot, taking everything out of the spot that we had set up, spent hours setting up. So, you can imagine a booth, sound system, lighting, visuals, everything, and transporting it to a new one. Of course, we didn't start on time, but I think people were pretty understanding. They understand what it takes to do these events and the things that the hoops that we have to jump through. And once the sound went on at the new spot, it was a proper night. I mean, people were having a great time.
Yeah, and for the most part, I think how you said people are understanding about when that type happens, because even I think the one that recently happened, I'm not sure who was playing, but I know my friend hit me up. He's like, yo, venue, last minute changes.
Yeah.
And, we kind of get bummed out for we feel like oh man, all the hard work you guys put in, got a bummer for that to happen. Are you able to disclose what are the reasons why a venue can last minute not be able to be operated or be used?
It can be various number of reasons. Most of the time, what's happened is you're renting, for example, a space from the owner of the space, but the landlord then is not okay with it. So it really depends on the event that you're doing, what kind of event that you're doing. There could be various reasons. Sometimes it could just be that you feel like it's just not the right spot for the night, or somebody pays more than you do, so they overbid, and it's just the nature of the business.
Wow, I didn't know that overbidding was.
But if
thing.
You're if you're doing these type of events like we do, that's part and parcel of the nature of the business, really. So we know we go in with the expectation this can happen, and for the bigger events, we even pay for and have a backup venue ready. So for compound events or events like the Speedy J one, where there's going to be a lot of people that we do not want to let down, and a lot of people where it will be really hard to find something last minute, we go through the trouble of finding a backup spot, sometimes even having a second sound system in there paid, extra porta potties there ready. So it's work that's not necessarily even known, but it's done in order to make sure that should anything happen, should we need to move, should there be a cancellation on the venue that we have ready or whatever, that we have a new spot to go to. Of course, that doesn't mean that the party will continue seamlessly. There will be a break. It does happen. But I think the people that go to these parties understand that, these events, they're mature get-togethers, and our crowd is very receptive of that, and they understand that this isn't a rave, this isn't some crazy house party, this is people that come together to see artists that they really enjoy, to celebrate. A lot of the times it's an event such as Labor Day, it's an event such as New Year's Eve or Halloween, so they're private events in that nature, but it's people that understand the scene and understand the music. But we do have to do our part to make sure that we can deliver on our promise within the realms of possibility.
That's crazy. I did not know that you guys literally have like a secondary backup, and that's and I guess thank you for as a goer, because you're really thinking, or not just you specifically, but the whole team who's behind the production. You guys are really thinking about the event goers and their experience overall. And
I mean, that's always the focus. I mean, we love the music, we do it for the music. Obviously, it's a business, you got to treat it as a business, but both because we love the music and both because it is a business, we need to look at our audience and the people on the dance floor as our priority. And the last thing that I want to do is to not be able to deliver on a promise and to fall short for people that are looking forward to seeing an artist, or even just going out and letting go after a stressful week, dealing with personal problems, life problems, work problems, or whatever. They're looking forward to going out like I do when I go out to shows and to listen to DJs that I love to, and to be able to dance. And as I said, the last thing any of us involved in these parties want to do is to let you guys down, or to let any of these people down. So, anything that we can do, again, within the realms of possibility within our industry, we try to do to make sure that the music goes on.
And the cool thing is that it's a little description that you said, it's a mature gathering, and that's something that a lot of people, co-workers, even family, and friends and family, but more than the family who hear about what you attend to, but they always are asking what is it, how do you dance to that type of music, is it crazy? I'm like, no, this is the thing, it's honestly an intimate, fun experience where and the crowd is mature. That's the word that I throw out too. I'm like, it's more mature, and then also I tell them it's 21 and over, strictly 21 and
Always.
over. So a lot of people think it's a lot of 18-year-olds, and yes, I guess 18-year-olds are adults, and I'm air quotes, but that's the main thing, that you guys really strictly, have your restrictions, your guidelines, and it's very, very well organized and put together for everybody to experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're aiming for. We do understand that as things get bigger, it's harder to keep that overall vibe and making sure that every single person that comes through the doors fits that description. At the moment, I would want to say that there is a surge in popularity of the word techno. So there's a lot of people that are getting into our kind of music, and some of them are more educated than others, and by educated I mean they understand how to behave themselves in our types of events. Others come from a more mainstream type of culture where they just rage and rave and can be a bit sloppy. So at times, unfortunately, we do have to police our events and make sure that the crowd is respectful, make sure that there is absolutely no harassment of any kind, no people with their flashes pointed at other patrons or DJs, because as you said, these are intimate parties, so that becomes a nuisance. But then again, all of this is part of our job as promoters. We constantly try to educate and to try to bring a good vibe and feel to the dance floor for everybody that is attending. It's not always possible to have an eye on every single patron inside the venue, but that's something that as we move along and as we educate our crowd, we always hope to be able to have a majority of people there that are educated, respectful, and really just there for the music. That's the focus. If you're there for the music, you know who's playing, you've done your homework, then you're not gonna ruin someone else's experience.
That's facts. But so you mentioned even before I even get to that, how you said the word techno is being thrown out a lot. I had when I was going to school, there was this foreign exchange student from Germany, and we both had, I guess, missed class. So when we were choosing groups, so the next day or the next following day for class, all the people who weren't there, they were forced to be in a group, and coincidentally, the guy from Germany was there, Philip. So shout out if you ever listen to this, but Phil. And quickly I asked him too, I'm like, hey, do you listen to techno music? And he assumed, because I'm American, he's like, whoa. He's like, it's more of like a housey electronic type. And he was just trying to describe it, because he says that a lot of Americans just throw out techno, and they're not referring to techno. They're referring to maybe trance or dubstep or something electronic, because I've had somebody else tell me, he's like, oh, I love a dubstep techno. And I was like, oh, well, those are two different genres. But I don't want to seem to be I guess a snob or anything. I'm like, every time if I want to and this is just a family friend, so I just tell them hey, this is, I'm not even trying to come off as I know it all. But just, I did, I got educated as well too, years ago. And those are two genres, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely those people that label all of electronic music as techno. And that's one thing. But I was referring more to the fact that anything that is not EDM, mainstream, big room, trance, or dubstep is also being referred to as techno these days. A lot of tech house is being referred to as techno. Yes. A lot of house, deep house, is being called techno. And you even see it with a lot of I want to say almost popular clothing brands that have nothing to do with our scene and the real ethos of our scene, just throwing the word techno around or putting it on their shirts or whatever. And it's just become a cool word to use. You're into techno, but a lot of the time, or some of the time, people use this word and it's not what they're describing. And so kind of the point that I was trying to say is, because the word has become popularized and there's a resurgence of popularity on the word techno, there's people that belong to maybe currently to a different kind of scene and a different kind of party environment, coming to these events, not yet used to how these events work, and bringing, and I don't mean to be rude or mean, but bringing some bad habits or disrespectful habits to parties where people have this more mature way of looking at things. So that's the kind of thing that I see is happening, but that's generally something that's going on in the United States these days, because again, techno's become popular, but that doesn't mean that to be good music has to be techno. There's good tech house, bad tech house, there's good house, there's bad house, and there's bad techno. There's a lot of generic bad techno out there too. The important is also for the people that are into techno and into our scene and that come to our parties to be accepting of new people, to understand that we all came from somewhere. We didn't all start listening to super obscure, deep, nuanced techno the moment we discovered electronic music. Some did, but the vast majority, honestly, especially in California and in the States, came from a rave background. So listening to trance, listening to EDM, listening to dubstep, bass music. So realizing that other people coming to these parties also come from that background, and that there is some adjustment. There's there's a little bit of a Venn diagram kind of going on there, where they're obviously drawing towards the techno sound, but may not necessarily know all about it yet, may need education both musically and as far as how to behave at these events. But that's also the job of a promoter. But also I feel like the job of the entire dance floor to educate, to be understanding and accepting, because rave culture began as an acceptance movement by people that were not accepted by mainstream, that created their own movement, because there they could be themselves, they could be free. So the kind of similar thing has to happen on every dance floor, including ours.
And you basically mentioned that the rave culture started as an acceptance movement. Some people can say there's a political standpoint between these, or not political standpoint of these warehouse and underground events. I sometimes describe them as safe spaces for people to be, be themselves. If it's just a couple of hours of just, dancing, just to release some of that stress that you had at your day job or at your house or whatever it is. So there's been recent events. I think it was, I need to really make sure my dates and everything, but it was this year, right? The Bassiani raid in Georgia. So, and then, basically that raid was followed by this couple of days long rave protest. And I say rave because it was, they had the DJ sound systems, the turntables, and bumping techno or just electronic music, and people were there to show their support for something that they felt passionate for. What would you say would be the political standpoint for these events, or if there is a political standpoint or some socioeconomic?
I think, well, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as our events go, at least, I will never tell somebody that they cannot come to our event because they voted for a specific candidate, or because they're, a Republican, I guess, or because they are politically inclined towards one direction versus another direction. I think everybody is entitled to vote for who they want and to have whatever political ideology that they want. However, the electronic music movement, the house movement, the techno movement, the rave movement, again, was born with the basis that everybody is born equal. It doesn't matter what, color, race, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status. No matter who you voted for, you're born equal. And as such, you deserve a space on the dance floor. Conversely, this doesn't mean that we should accept intolerance because we need to accept everything. Because that's also a false idea that people push around all the time is, well, if you accept everything, then you should accept somebody that is racist or that is sexist or that is a Nazi, to go to an extreme. And I think that's incorrect, because to be tolerant, you have to have a hard stance against intolerance. So, it's a bit of a tough bridge to cross, but that's kind of where you have to draw some lines. If I had somebody that came to a party and was racist, sexist, harassed verbally or physically any staff member or patron for who they are or how they are, I would make sure that they're kicked out of the event, and I would make sure that they're not allowed in the event again, because that's being intolerant. But if you voted for Trump and because you think that economically he is the best choice the country had, and you want to come to our event and dance to techno, I may not agree with you, but be respectful, do your thing, and that's totally fine. It's not my place to say you cannot come because of that. With regards to Bassiani, what happened there, I feel like that's more of a general attack towards electronic music and the rave movement. The government there is very conservative, and they associate partying, nightlife, techno, raving with drugs. It's A equals A equals A. So there's no distinction, and it also fails to recognize that, like it or not, drugs are everywhere in society, and they don't discriminate with one type of music genre or one type of party lifestyle. There's people that go to rock concerts, hip hop, rap, country, and they do drugs. It's the choice of the individual whether to do them or not, and then that's a whole other debate.
And that's alcohol too.
Yeah, and alcohol too, arguably even worse than a lot of the drugs that are banned or looked badly upon in certain countries, like in Georgia. So, what happened there is they really stood up for their right to rave, regardless of all of that. Another important thing about Georgia is they have a very hard stance against homosexuality or against anything that's not heterosexuality. So Bassiani, in a way, it's a safe place for everybody, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender, etc. And the attack there was also, I think, seen partially as an attack against the freedom and liberty of a person to be who they are, regardless of what the government thinks. So that's also an important thing. That's a topic of importance in today's world and in our industry and scene.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. It was kind of proud to be like part of of a culture, or just overall culture of if it's rave culture, electronic music culture. But I was showing my coworkers. I'm like, oh, look what's happening, across the country. Like, yo, this is passion right here. This is really, backing, what you love and what you back for. Yeah. So you stand up for, in a sense. So so that's exactly how I always tell. And I remember that experience. At the same time, I was taking a global media, it's international communication class. So we just basically studied global media and whatnot, and we had to do a project on choosing a media in a certain Mediterranean country or something, or area or region, and just do a research on how it affects the society, economy, and whatnot. And when that was happening, I'm like, I want to talk or do research on something that I'm part of, and I feel passionate about. So I wanted to study or do some type of research in that. But I ended up going. I think I did the party tourism in Ibiza to kind of see like the political economy of party tourism or club tourism in Ibiza. So I kind of still had the electronic like rave culture and so I went that way. But basically, when did you hear the term EDM for the first time?
I guess when I moved here. I wasn't really aware. By here I mean the United States. Yes. So when I was in Chicago, that's kind of before it was house techno, progressive house, trance, and whatnot. So I heard EDM as a term first, I guess, in the early 2000s, 2010, 11, 12, probably 11, when I first moved to the States. But kind of to sort of answer and go on what you said before, I think that's also an important thing that local officials, governments generally fail to understand is, people will party, people want to have a good time, and nightlife is important. It's important for tourism, it's important for the local economy, and in cities where they have understood that, like Berlin, like Amsterdam, London a little bit more recently, despite hiccups, and even New York a little bit. There's a whole system in place to support nightlife and the money that it brings, and it's an entire missed opportunity for a lot of cities, including Los Angeles, where alcohol cutoff time is at 2 a.m., where it's very hard to get permits for certain events and all of that kind of stuff. I feel that if at least the big cities, big municipalities understood just the economic advantage that having a booming nightlife scene would bring, they would adopt it more instead of holding this conservative viewpoint that it's bad. So that kind of goes into what you were saying before. Again, if there was this understanding, maybe the attacks on nightlife, rave, and our music wouldn't be as frequent either.
So I live in the Inland Empire region. It's basically east of Los Angeles, for those who don't know where it's at. Specifically, I live in San Bernardino, California. So a lot of people from the IE come to LA come to LA for all these events as well too. Uh, have you heard of the IE? Well, before even we started recording this podcast, you did say that. So
of course.
Does it make sense to try to have a thriving underground rave scene in the Inland Empire? Because LA is not too far away, but it's kind of thriving.
I mean, sure, why not? The LA urban area, it's so vast and densely populated that I'm sure that if somebody locally in San Bernardino or in Pomona, or wherever in those kind of areas, somewhere accessible to everybody, was to start something cool, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, the same way people drive here for that. I know people that drive from Santa Barbara to come to our events, and San Diego, flying from San Francisco. Yeah. So, if you build
and Arizona too.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Chicago for the first compound, where people come from Miami, New York, Canada, Seattle. So it happens. Music tourism is a thing. So of course, if you bring the right event in the Inland Empire, people will come. I mean, Insomniac has been doing events out there as has Hard for years, and obviously thousands of people go. I'm not sure exactly how the house and techno scene is out there. I don't think it's very existent. People just come here to the city, but that doesn't mean that if you didn't do something out there, people wouldn't go. I know people I know raves, like big parties that have been thrown up here in the valley where I live, even deeper north, and of course there's desert parties that happen all the time. So
like
people
in the
go
Mojave
to those.
Desert, yes.
Yeah, people go to those all the time. So again, it's a mixture of having a good group, well promoted, a good lineup, good vibes. It's a lot of things that come into it. But if you're able to build something cool and unique and special, I don't see why people wouldn't go.
And you mentioned Compound, so that's another event that, not specifically just you. It's I would assume it's
four companies and five people essentially. It's Synthetic Minds, 6am, Dirty Epic, and Incognito. Incognito, Dirty Epic are two companies, brands, however you want to call it, with whom we do events with every once in a while. And we just came to the consensus that it would be cool to try to do something still very underground influence musically, but bigger and with bigger production value. And I don't think we've quite succeeded yet in our initial goal. We've done, I think, 3 editions now of Compound, and they've all done really well. And we brought out some really cool artists, and the crowds were big, and the production was really dope. Especially the second one was my favorite.
With DVS?
With DVS One.
Yeah.
I think that party was my favorite in LA since I've been here, but I am biased. But yeah, so our idea was to come together and do something bigger. We think LA deserves it, and there's other people doing really cool big things. Insomniac just announced this huge secret project lineup with Factory 93, and for those who like that kind of sound, it's massive. I mean, the artists on there are insanely huge. I mean, that's a festival lineup. And our little contribution to LA, as far as more than just the regular fortnightly parties that we do, was the idea of doing Compound 2-3 times a year and to just step things up a little bit. And we hope to continue that in this coming winter, and to kind of keep that going next year.
And then you mentioned that for the Compound events, people are coming from Canada, Chicago. I know personally from Arizona, the IE, California in general. How do you think what would be your perspective on the impact that you've done to the Los Angeles electronic music scene and also overall electronic music scene? Because I would say, LA techno or electronic music in Los Angeles is part of the overall electronic music.
I think obviously we've cut our own little slice of influence in the LA market and in the United States overall. By no means do I think we're largely responsible for anything. To elaborate on that, LA has such a deep, long history with electronic music, the rave scene, but even more specifically techno. I mean, there's people that have been doing techno events here for when I was too young to even know what electronic music was. And even more recently, quote unquote, 10, 11 years ago, I don't know the exact date, the guys at Droid, started a movement musically that has really put LA on the map and has kept putting LA on the map for years to this day. You know, people like Mo Drumsell or David Trunkett, and the other guys behind it, and all the people around the states that have been supporting them as a label and as a party series, have done a tremendous job. And the Interface party series that they started, no doubt has been one of the biggest influences for me as a promoter and as a event organizer. From the aesthetic, the production, the lineups, the vibe, the feel, the camaraderie. I've had some of my best times on the dance floor at these events, and I feel like they've done far more than I've done in LA, and it doesn't even compare. With that said, you know, a lot of the people behind these events have gone on to launch such incredible artist careers of their own, where, you know, they're traveling all over the world playing gigs at Berghain and Trésor and Japan and everywhere. And so, you know, it left a little bit of space for us to do our parties. And to answer your question, I do think we are a part of a bigger ecosystem that has made people all over the world really look at LA and say, hey, like, something really cool is happening over there. There's a lot of enthusiasm for electronic music, house, techno, specifically techno, if we want to talk about the events that we're doing. And artists from all over the world want to play LA. Like, I'm gonna tell you, they really want to play LA. They want to come to LA. It's a cool city. The weather's great. The nature around it is great. And the parties are fantastic. So I do want to say we've done our little part to contribute to that. But by no means do I think we've been the biggest contributor or a large contributor. I think there's still a long way to go. There's people that have been doing this for years that are still an inspiration to us and that we still hope to, you know, keep contributing to.
You mentioned that droid behavior, you know, they've been through, because I remember the last interface was there 15 years.
Yeah, 15, there you go.
Remember, I think I told Vidal, I'm like, you're having a quinceañera, like, you know, like in the Mexican culture, you know,
yeah,
that's your quinceañera. And when you arrived to LA, were there other collectives or crews in the same caliber as Droid Behavior that were throwing events that you can be like, okay, yeah, these were people
I mean, Droid were definitely the ones that I already knew, that I was aware of. I've looked forward to and attended every interface party that I could have since the first one that I went to in Detroit years back. And I even had the chance to interview Mo. It was my first artist interview ever, but that's another story. When I moved here, obviously I knew those were going on. I knew Incognito was doing parties. Some of them were with 6am. I knew Dirty Epic was doing parties. I knew, Ruse at the time was called, some of the guys at Ruse were doing events under Invert. So there were these different players, and of course Prototype at Lost 613 was also a very popular series, but the techno events there were spearheaded by Droid. They were called Prime. They were spearheaded by Droid. So, I was definitely aware that there were big techno players, big event organizers, but I also do think that in the last 2 years we've seen a boom, perhaps too much, perhaps a little bit of oversaturation. So we are even going to slow down our events in next year a little bit, but I think it's seen a boom, a healthy boom, a lot of options. I think people if you look on Resident Advisor any given weekend of the year, anyone else in the United States is arguably jealous of the lineups that everyone has to offer, and most of the time there's several events happening at once, and they all do well. They're all well attended, so that's a sign of a good thing happening in the city.
No, that's exactly how you said. Perfect example. There's options. I have a planner, and I basically write every event that I would want to attend, or just happening. I'm like, okay, boom, boom. And I think for September, there's something happening every weekend, and multiple things every weekend too. So for sure it's going to be popping, and that's something as well too. And I'm guessing you would feel proud, to be able to like, okay, we're going to book this person, and I'm going to be able to showcase, Los Angeles to these people as well too. And the thing as well too, there's a lot of people attending your events for the first time and being, I guess, what's the word? Damn, I just got a brain fart. But
like introduced?
Yeah, get introduced to techno for the first time, and they might not know specifically who's playing or who that artist is playing, but that influenced them to go back home and just be like, what did I listen to? What is this? Who is that person? And then from there it spirals down, spirals up, to more.
Yeah, and I was that person at some point. I think we've all been that person, which is kind of going back to what we talked about before, the notion that everybody that attends these events needs to be a deep techno head or a techno snob, quote unquote, that knows the artists and their releases. That's not necessarily true. As long as somebody comes with an open mind, maybe there's a friend, or maybe they're on a date. I know people that take their dates to these parties, as I would too. There's nothing better than sharing music. So whether you're sharing music by bringing people to these events, or whether I feel like I'm sharing music by booking artists I respect and love and being able to showcase them, I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can give somebody, whether it's somebody that whether it's somebody new in your life, a friend, a possible partner, or, I've introduced my girlfriend to a lot of artists that I feel like she didn't know, and to see somebody experience that and love it and fall in love with techno and the whole scene, it's something pretty magical.
And I just right now you mentioned your girlfriend, and I'm not sure if I got this right. Being a follower on social media. Did you meet your girlfriend in ADE? ADE?
Yeah, I met her at a pregame the first night of ADE last year. She came with some friends. And we kind of talked very little that night, but it was on the last night of ADE. We found ourselves at the same party. We just ended up talking, and some of my favorite artists were playing that night: LSD and Surgeon and Speedy J. And at first, we just talked, and
perfect.
I think some interest was piqued, but nothing was explored until way later in December. So this was October, so way later in December here back in LA. So we met thanks to techno, thanks to music, and on the other side of the world. But she's from lives in LA, I live in LA, and it just happened.
When you guys met, did you guys already know who you guys were in Los Angeles?
I think I had heard of her, just in passing from the people that introduced me to her. So I knew that she was part of the group, and but we were not friends on social media. I'd never seen her there was no connection whatsoever. I don't think she knew of me or anything. So.
And a little bit back, you were saying, being able to have the opportunity to introduce people to these artists and, respected artists. For when it comes to event production, what is your process when booking an artist, in regards to contacting, hosting their stay, and then just even the performance night? Because, we get to see when you take them out to Korean barbecue, take them to the beach. So it's, it's more than just booking them, paying them.
Yeah.
It's a lot line. That's what we get to see because of social media.
No, totally. It's a process. And for some artists, it's a bigger process than for some others, because there's a lot of moving parts involved. I mean, going to ADE those 2 times was a very important move for us, because we developed relationships with agents. So the agents represent these artists, and once they put a face to the name or to the parties, you build this trust. So that was the first step. And then, the process is usually mostly done via email. You inquire on availability. Once they're available, you kind of think of a lineup, and then you put in an offer, a monetary offer. The agent can either accept, counter offer, reject. Sometimes we've been rejected outright. Sometimes it's a counter offer. Sometimes they accept. You come to an agreement, and then it's logistics. So it's depends. You got to sort out flights. You got to sort out hotel. You got to sort out our airport pickups. You got to sort out where to take him to dinner, and that's generally all a promoter is really responsible for. So most promoters, or a lot of promoters, will book an artist, send a professional paid driver that doesn't even know anything about the artist or even what's going on, picks him up at the airport with a sign. drops them at the hotel. You know, it's all agreed upon. There's like a time, the person knows where to go. There's a sign. And sometimes the artist, I'm told, doesn't even meet the promoter the whole stay. I was told that recently by somebody that we had over here. So really the minimum that's usually required is to give the artist, make sure that the flight's somewhat included in the deal, whether they book it or we book it, that there is a hotel or an Airbnb, that there is ground transportation from hotel to, from airport to hotel to venue, and then dinner, at least one meal. Sometimes they have dinner in the hotel, sometimes you take him out. But really, contractually, that's all we're responsible for. Personally, and this is something that Gia, 6am, and myself are really proud of, and a lot of other promoters do this also, is we realize that these artists, while they do a job that we hope they love and we think they love, and they travel the world and are able to play their music or DJ in front of people and spread that kind of happiness, they're also jet lagged. They're also traveling, and all they see is the solitude or loneliness of a hotel room. They're, what they see is the airport, car, hotel, venue, airport, car, hotel, venue. A lot of the times I have back-to-back events. So we love when an artist is able to spend a few more hours in LA rather than just straight to and from hotel, airport, and venue, because we love to be able to show them around our city. We love to be able to take them to some interesting food spots, breweries. I've taken artists on hikes. So taking them on hikes, or taking them to the beach, or just showing them, they're traveling around the world, and sometimes they're not even seeing the city at all. So being able to do that for them, I think it's a service that they appreciate, and I think it also builds a relationship with them, and that's why we do it primarily. But also, if you want to look at it from a business sense, and this is something I recommend for any promoter or event organizer, it makes these artists want to play for you again. It makes the agents hear that the artist is happy, that they've been treated well, and hopefully they want to play for you again, and hopefully other people want to play for you again. And if they speak to other artists on the other side of the world about their tour, they say, hey, I played in LA, the guys were great. We did this, the event was dope, first and foremost, but also we were able to go around, check out the city, and it builds that more personal touch.
Yeah, it's proper hospitality, and then I see that, I'm like, dude, there's got to be, is it every promoter that does that, or is it just you guys, or is just, maybe it could become a trend thing, and maybe it would benefit the artist, but that's something true that, you said. I remember, I think 2 days ago, I was on Mike Servito's Instagram, and he's like, 2-hour flight or 4-hour flight, then 2-hour layover, 2-hour drive, and then 2-hour something else as well. So I'm like, oh man, it's just back to back to back traveling, and we only get to see, them at the event, maybe like when they're having dinner, but we don't see like the whole, how you said, the solitude of being at the hotel and the airport and whatnot.
Right, and of course sometimes they want to rest. Sometimes they're jet lagged. They want to rest. They want to just be in their room, and they don't want to go out and see the city, and that's totally fine. But to be able to give them that option, so, and especially if they're spending a couple of more days, and a lot of them do. They don't want to, events end really early in the morning. So sometimes they fly straight back home and they'd rather be home. But sometimes they'd rather kind of rest, have another couple of days. Sometimes they take trips. They go to Vegas. There's all sorts of different things they do. And of course, we encourage that. If you're traveling, imagine if you're going for a work trip to Hong Kong, and all you do is get to the airport, get to whatever meeting, and get to your hotel and leave, and you haven't seen anything of the city. You want to check it out, right? So it's that kind of similar concept.
So when you throw shows, basically, I know there's got to be a pre-ritual and a post-ritual. What would be your personally? Yeah.
I need to relax.
Before the show?
And after.
Oh, and after.
It's very demanding. I'm self-employed. Well, I'm not. I'm employed, but I work from home.
Yes.
And because of this entrepreneurial streak that I have, I often work from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. And I go to the gym in the middle and I'll make my lunch, but sometimes I'm eating while working because I'm working from home, and I'll run errands, but it's 10, 12-hour days, Monday to Friday. And then the event comes on Saturday. So if I go and party the night before on a Friday, and then on Saturday there's airport pickups, there is physical setups, there is inventory runs for everything that we need, logistic nightmares, last minute changes, and then doors open at 10 p.m. and I'm exhausted, I'm not going to enjoy the night, which it's counterintuitive. Like, I should be able to enjoy the night that I'm putting on for other people to enjoy. I may be tired, and that may affect how I work the rest of the week. So I usually tend to not go out the night before if I can avoid it. I tend to have a pretty relaxing Saturday. I will get brunch. I will have a beer. I will, maybe cook at home. I will even go on a little hike or go to the gym, but I won't do anything that's overly overly exhausting. And then Sunday, sometimes even on 2-3 hours sleep, or zero sleep, it's taking the artist back to the airport or taking him around. But, then we could take it a little bit easier on a Monday. We do have that flexibility.
I know, and that's I'm thankful for this, conversation, because, from just the internet perspective, it seems like, oh man, this is cool. And it is cool. It's got to be a blessing to be able to do this, being how you said, it's not self-employed, but it is self-employed because you don't have anybody behind you, like a supervisor telling you, okay, you got to do this, hey, are you doing this? It's on your time. You know what has to be done, and you'll do it according to your timing as well too. And how you said, we know you as a marketing manager and content director for various event companies such as Synthetik Minds and 6 a.m. You also do marketing for other companies such as Downbeats, which is the earplugs companies as well too. How do you help others and yours and other companies to expand their social media presence and interactions? What would be some
that's sort of the
don't let out any secrets that you don't want.
No. The Monday to Friday grind, on top of doing all the articles for 6 a.m. and the social media and the promotions online and working out the bookings and the logistics and all of that, which in and of itself is a full-time job. As you said, I do social media work for various other companies. Two specifically, one is Downbeats, which I've been doing for 4 years now. They're a high-fidelity earplug manufacturer and provider out of Chicago. So I had the luck of meeting the founder and CEO of the company, Darren, when I was still in college, and he gave me an internship, and he gave me a job right out of college, and that's how I've been able to be here and to do what I do. And that's really my job. My job is Downbeats, and through Downbeats I do social media work for Downbeats and for other companies that Darren owns. And that's where I get paid. That's how I pay my bills.
That would be, like, in a sense, air quotes, your day job.
That is my day job. I do it, from home because I don't need to be in an office. Yeah. But there's a lot of social media work that the Downbeats website has its own blog. And then from Downbeats, again, I do social media work also for other companies that Darren owns, including a restaurant out of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
So that's where my not much money comes from. That's how I pay rent. That's how I'm here in the United States on a visa. The music thing, like the blog at 6 a.m. and all of that stuff, we don't make money off of that. It's not a money-making machine. There's no ads on our site. It's purely music, passion-driven. Even these events, people must, I don't know if people think that they're this sort of way of making all this money. They're not. No 6 a.m. as a company invests money in these, and sometimes you got to make a little bit of a profit in order to be able to do the next event and whatnot. Yeah. But we're doing this purely for the music. So I got to keep well, firstly, because of my visa, I'm only here because I work for Downbeats.
Okay.
So I'm on a visa. So I got to keep my 9 to 5 job, and I apply the same strategies and the same passion behind those jobs at Downbeats and the restaurant and the social media work there as I do for my events. So, it's staying ahead of trends. It's using SEO and blog. It's using, social media posts, management tools, and increasing engagement. And those are the kind of, regular run-of-the-mill things that I do, as well as sponsorship deals, securing sponsorships for Downbeats, or honestly, even finding leads. So, people that will buy Downbeats in bulk for their club or for their party or for their label or whatever. So
that's
kind of what I do
this
during the week.
And this is like an important question that, in regarding to social media, that maybe an artist that's going to be listening to this can benefit from. But, social media has its advantages, of course, and we can assume and see what they are. But what do you think personally, because I'm not sure, it's not the one answer, but it could be a productive answer. But what should the relationship be between an artist and their social media platforms?
Well, I think this is a very hotly debated subject, and artists have very differing opinions. I feel like, as a rule of thumb, for me, artists that enjoy social media and have understood how to crack it, quote unquote, are the ones that don't complain about it. Some artists just don't enjoy sharing that much about themselves, and that's completely fine. Unfortunately, we live in a world where social media is important, rightly or wrongly. This is not a moral subject, it's just a fact. There's people book based on social media. The amount of people that come out to your shows, unfortunately, are proportionate to how much people follow you. So if you're not able to leverage your online presence and your following, as well as your music and your business side of the career, I feel like you can suffer. And some people are able to use the right gimmicks and whatever to circumnavigate the need of social media. Some others are able to get ahead only thanks to social media, and perhaps not thanks to their music. So I can understand why some artists feel a little bit cheated, and others feel like they're taking, advantage of it. But I feel like every artist should at least try to understand social media a little bit, and try to keep it as a connection with their fans. I'm totally against buying followers, fake followers, or anything that's padding statistics. That's not right. But I do feel that, if you're able to do the right things in order to get a bigger followings, and if the way you're doing it is through social media, so be it. You know what I mean? As long as it's done in a morally correct way. Like with everything, there's trends, there's things that people will look at more than others, and some things do better than others. But being completely invisible and only hoping that having your name based on releases is going to do the trick, that doesn't always work. It may work for some that have a name already established before social media. So I'm sure that if Cock Hawk stopped posting anything on social media, I'm sure he would still get booked. That goes without saying, even if he stopped 5 years ago. But not everybody's a Cock Hawkson in a position to do that. So if you're not able to even just keep that conversation going a little bit, you will just lose interest on behalf of the fans, and ultimately on behalf of the event promoters or bookers that would bring you to play their shows.
That's true. That's I know. I remember I had like a phase where I was tweeting every day, tweeting every minute and everything, and then I went through a phase. It's not like some changes in life that made me kind of be more selective on what I share on Twitter. And now when I try to use social media, but I do recognize that I could be a little bit more active on it, because I'm just more selective and a little bit of OCD-ish on what I post and how the post looks, or the picture, or the tweet, how it's grammatically posted. It's just something like that. And then sometimes I'll be halfway tweeting something, and then I'm like, do people really need to know this? And then
I mean,
just
but
like,
that's
sit back.
important. I feel like that's important. Branding is important. I think any artist should understand what their brand is musically, on social media, even the way their aspect is. And I'm not talking about gimmicks. I'm not talking about wearing a marshmallow head, but some people wear masks, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But I think having an overall brand of what you want to be perceived as your character, your integrity, the kind of things that you will discuss on social media, whether they're about music or personally. I think that's all important. And being selective is not wrong. You don't want to overshare. You don't want to just tweet every 2 seconds anything and everything. That can be annoying. That can turn people off too. But social media is a way of being connected. So however you establish that connection, it's a constantly ever-changing industry too. Social media trends change all the time. Algorithms on the platforms change all the time. Popularity of platforms change all the time. Facebook isn't what Facebook was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Neither is Instagram, neither is Twitter. And understanding the differences between these networks and how to best take advantage of them is also important.
Do you use Snapchat? Not sure if that's a platform.
I have it. I don't anymore.
That's one of the least ones that I kind of don't.
Yeah, I don't anymore. I don't think anybody really in the industry does, as far as business or I don't know of any artists that are on Snapchat. Yeah. I know celebrities, and I know Snapchat is still used. But personally, I think Instagram introducing stories that kind of kill Snapchat a little, and I know I have unwatched Snapchats from weeks ago that I should delete the app, really.
I know I honestly have faith. I'm like, I'm not even using it, so I delete it. And then somebody tells me like, hey, I've been hitting you up on Snapchat or something. How come you don't post anything? I'm like, I honestly don't use it. I'm like, I'll probably reply to it if I haven't. I see that there's a notification that somebody messaged me, but that's basically it. But that just crossed my head. I'm like, I wonder if you use Snapchat for any like promotion or marketing.
I did for a bit. When it first came out, when it was popular, I took advantage of it, and I did. I don't think it really had any, I may have told my close friends that, hey, but in some markets, again, like I just know in some markets, Snapchat is more popular. So again, it depends. Know your market. Know if you're doing an event in a country where Snapchat is really popular, and whether your demographic, whether young or not, uses Snapchat, then you should stay ahead of the trend or be with it and use Snapchat. But personally, I don't think it's something that I personally need.
So we're kind of, getting to the end of the interview in this conversation, and I know a top favorite event might be a difficult one, but you mentioned that Compound was like your favorite one. So mention like 3 to 5. Let's not go too much, just top three that you say, okay, these are for sure memorable events. It doesn't have to be in California, maybe if you threw an event, for House of Shine.
That I personally threw?
Yes, yeah. Or helped throw.
Yeah. I've enjoyed the feeling, the rewarding feeling of doing some of the harder events, or being able to bring a booking process that took months or that was a bit harder, or an artist that I particularly enjoy to LA. That's always more rewarding. But to kind of answer your question more specifically, if I have to choose between the 3 compounds, I really, really loved the way the second one with DVS1, Terrence Fixmer, Drum Cell, and Gerard. That one I think was a little bit extra special than the other ones. They were all great, but I think that one, the venue was ideal. The way the production came together was ideal. The music was great, and just the whole dance floor really seemed to be about it. And there was something special, I think, that night with that compound. So sometimes I can get lost in the business aspect of things even during an event, and I don't get to enjoy it as much. But that one, I remember walking out thinking, wow, this was sick. It was dope. And I think a lot of other people agree with that generally as not necessarily favorite sets, but the favorite night, the overall thing. Another one was Speedy J last year. Speedy J is my favorite artist, so one of the artists that consistently delivers, I feel. It was also not an easy booking to make happen. So to be able to do that, it was also one of the first bookings that I ever did here in LA. So all of that culminating into an event on July 3rd night, in that hot box of a sauna. It was incredibly hot, and we made mistakes. This was also why I really liked it. It's because we made mistakes that night. Again, it was one of our first big events. We ran out of water and ice. The venue, although big, wasn't really ideal. It didn't have an outdoor chill out area, and it was hot that weekend. It was like typical LA, 90-degree weather during the day and like 80s at night. So we learned a lot. We haven't run out of water since. We haven't run out of ice since. You know, I made the promise to people on Twitter. I put it out there. I apologize and all of that. But altogether, I think that experience, for the people that stayed through it and really like battled through and gave it their all on the dance floor, I thought it was quite something. Let me see. It's hard to pick a third.
I knew this question would be a little bit difficult because, you know, you've experienced a good amount of, you've done a lot too. I
don't know. There's been the recent SNTS show was pretty dope because that's the one that we had to postpone.
Oh, that one.
So again, I think there was a little bit of an extra victory in the fact that we were able to put it on despite all the odds, and the fact that once the music was on, the atmosphere in the room was pretty electrifying. And everybody on that lineup, Dean Paul, Axcan, and SNTS himself, put on amazing sets. That was also another night that I don't think I'll forget.
That was the there was a picture of you and it looked like it was SNTS back to back with, you know, Reckoner, but you were just probably grabbing something, right?
It was actually at the end of the party. I was just cleaning up.
Okay, yeah. So.
But I do have to mention another one. The first Synthetic Minds party with 6am was Phase. Last year, the weekend after Movement, so beginning of June.
I remember.
Phase was also another one of those artists that I've respected for a long time.
You were hanging out with him, I think, in Detroit this year.
Yeah, we're homies now. He is a fantastic human being, a fantastic producer and DJ, but an even better person, if that's possible. And so it was the first time I got to meet him and have him. It was a small party. But that whole lineup, we had Hypnotic playing, we had Template and Kyle playing, and then Phase. It was again the vibe on the dance floor was just right. Everybody was having a fantastic night. It was intimate, and I think that night was also special because it was our first party together. It was the first time 6am had done a party without Incognito due to conflict, and it was never even meant to be a Synthetic Minds party, but it just so happened that it was. And I think it's a night that we've talked about a few times since within our group, so it got to be a good fourth mention.
So what does the future hold for you personally, Synthetic Minds, and 6am? Anything that you don't want to, no surprises that you want to spoil, but you can kind of maybe like hint, sure. Just...
I mean, obviously we have already an announced lineup for September and an event announced for October. We're waiting on a confirmation to bring a dystopian artist back in October.
Oh, nice.
That will hopefully we can announce. When is this interview going live?
I'm trying to beginning of October.
Okay.
So by this time, September.
We will have Rebecca on December 1st. And we're hoping to bring back Compound in December.
Oh, wow.
So we're working on a lineup that includes some fairly big names. And we're trying to bring back the idea of doing it daytime with an after party. So if things come together, December 8th, we will have Compound.
Okay, whoa.
If things come together.
Okay.
We're also going to be doing our first New Year's Eve party. So it's going to be a techno event with, I think, a couple of guests that we're still working on. So can't spill the beans on those. And then for next year, we have I Hate Models is confirmed. with Emmanuel, the Ed of Arts label.
And this is for next year?
Yeah, in January. And then for the 2-year anniversary of Synthetik Minds, we have a name penciled in that I think will be one of the top 5 bookings that we've done. But it's not confirmed yet. So I don't want to say it in case I can't deliver. I don't want to, I'm knocking on wood and all of that. So hopefully it goes through. But, on the broader picture, I think we're going to be slowing down the events a little bit next year, doing a little bit less. A little bit more selective with our bookings. I think we will also, if the compound in December goes through as we want it, we will keep that formula. We really want to be able to give an underground techno lineup. By that I mean not the big names that play Coachella techno, but the for the people that really understand techno type of artists, like the ones Synthetik Minds and 6M bring. Outdoor party with an after party. So a daytime into evening event, after party. And hopefully we can continue that from the one we do in December into next year and grow it a little bit. And then I know that we're working on some events in other cities. We'll be back at Movement with a couple parties, including possibly one big one. We'll be back. And then we're looking to do our first party in Miami. And the other thing that I know will be announced by the time this goes live is at the end of this month, myself, Andrew Soto of Dirty Epic, and Gia 6am, we're launching an artist agency.
Because that's what basically Gia was recently posted at this time. He posted recently on this community for 6am. He's like, anybody, or I think he was calling out like
that's
the
about
DJs?
something else.
Okay, no,
that's about something else. A project of his. But yes, we're launching an artist agency, a techno focused for the States. So it's being able to give artists that are not in the States specifically, European artists that don't have US representation, an agent in the United States that understands the market, has connections with various city, so that when they come here, they can have a tour that really gives them the most out of their travel over the Atlantic.
Do you guys do that kind of right now currently? Because when you go to the 6am, there's like artist resources, or there's it says international visas and like help with that type of assistance. That's a service we launched this year. We do offer a visa service, so we're able to provide. We have a whole service where basically if an artist needs a visa to come to the States, we'll do it for them at a cheaper price than any other visa service or lawyer or whatever. So we do offer that. The agency is something different. We will be actively representing top names in techno. We're talking big artists that are European. We'll be representing them, getting them gigs, and we'll be their agent. And we'll be working to highlight their profiles in the States and get them the right gigs at the right time, at the right locations with the right promoters for the right price. Basically, the fact that we're promoters, we know how this works from one end. And we know how, although most agents that I work with honestly are fantastic, some really cool people, sometimes, there's an agent or two that's difficult to work with. We hope to be able to be an agency, for the promoter to be able to work together to help the promoter have a great night, build their local scene, help the artists build their following and have a great experience when they come over, and then build the United States techno scene, or do our part in building it more in the years to come. Wow, that's amazing. And I think that you can suit that perfectly, and I think you're going to be able to do a lot of good stuff. I don't know too much of that. I'm not like an expert or anything, but from my perspective and what I've seen, I think that's like ideal and perfect as well too. I think it's being able to leverage everything that we have going on. The fact that we can book them in LA if needed, or we know the context in LA. If we cannot book them, there's a ton of other great promoters here. They're able to book them, and obviously Chicago, San Francisco. We know promoters from all over the country, and we have these connections that European agents don't have.
So it's almost intuitive to have. It's like if I was an agent for an American artist trying to get them booked in Europe, I don't know club promoters, I don't know club owners or talent buyers. So who do I reach out to? I have no idea. So having somebody on the ground that has those connections will enable these artists to come over here and not just play 1 or 2 gigs a weekend, but to play multiple gigs, even Thursdays, Tuesdays, Sundays, and just get the most out of their stay here and be able to bring techno to cities where the scenes maybe are not as big as LA, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, but cities that deserve to have these artists go and perform.
And I'll bet you a bunch of, I want to call them local artists, are going to want to know this. And I think you guys, you and 6 a.m., on the social media, had a little series when you guys, people were asking questions and you guys were responding. So what does it take for a local artist to get booked or to be recognized from your guys's, of course it's going to be hard work and, social media presence, but what are like at least top 3 things that, you'd recommend for the hungry and, local artists in Los Angeles or just in general?
For sure. It's a complicated answer. Talent obviously is important. You have to have talent. You have to be a good DJ or producer or producer. So that's first and foremost. I'm not going to book somebody because they have a ton of likes on Facebook, but I don't think that they're a good DJ. And that includes big DJs. If I don't think somebody's a good DJ, I'm not talking about necessarily that they play the music I like, but a good DJ. Which is technically good at mixing, does a good job. I'm not going to book them. So the same thing applies to a local DJ. So that's important. However, that we know talent doesn't get you gigs. Only talent doesn't get you gigs. A lot of the time, a lot more is required, and it's a mixture. I think if a local artist is present in his community, shows face at events, supports, is present beyond sending an Instagram or Facebook direct message saying, hey, book me, do you have space at your next party? Likely, if I don't know you, or I've seen your name maybe on playing some local parties, but I don't really know who you are. We've never met, we've never talked. As much as I like to give space to people, I'm just more likely to choose those that I have met, that I have put a face to the name, that I've then listened to their SoundCloud, that I'm like, oh, this guy is about it. He does come to parties. He does support. He is a good artist. I've spoken to him. He seems like a cool guy or girl. I'll put him on the next lineup. And, in the coming weeks, there's a couple of people playing for us that are fantastic local selector, like Mesme next week. She's great. And I've never booked her before, and it's probably long overdue that she plays one of our parties. But I've talked to her. I found her to be passionate about the music first and foremost, and a brilliant DJ. And then having listened to her sets and having seen her enthusiasm for it, I'm like, she deserves to play. So sometimes it's easy for a promoter to get lost in booking the same openers all the time, and sometimes that's cost effective to book somebody in your crew, and you have to think with that too. I mean, if there's a DJ in your crew and the budget's tight, or it's looking like the event's not going to be that good, and you're going to lose money, you have to make these decisions. But when we look at who else to book, we're looking at people that are giving something to the local techno community or the local music scene. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, people that come to our parties all the time. But, the more you're visible to our eyes, the more likely I think a promoter is likely to book you. And that's just, I've experienced this in Chicago, and I've experienced it here. And I'm pretty sure that it's the same in a lot of other places.
Yeah, that's what somebody initially would tell me. He's like, one key thing, show your face, become a familiar, person, just familiar face around the scene as well too, because that's the main thing as well too, just talking to people. And so that's basically as well you said, basically, supporting as well to the events as well too, because I guess there's a lot of people who talk about, the underground this, the underground that, but don't actually support the underground. And I don't want to keep throwing just the word underground, but specifically these warehouse events that,
right.
To me personally have proper content and proper lineups as well too. So
yeah, no, I mean it's again, as I said, it's a complicated answer because it involves the right level of sort of everything on behalf of the local artists, and it also requires that the promoter's willing to give space to these people. And I think a promoter's responsibility is not just to book big names and bring them, and he's responsible for the local scene to give space to artists that deserve it. And I believe that at 6 a.m. and Synthetic Minds and with Compound, we've tried to do that. So I mean, even the Compound formula for us has been a resident and then a mainstay of the techno community that has inspired us or has done something for us or of meaning, or that is that has pioneered the way, in a way, if you will. So we've had Della Moon Tribe, who does a lot of great work within her scene, which is even not the same as ours, but fantastic techno set. The first Compound. Drum Cell, I mean, I talked about Mo earlier, huge inspiration, fantastic producer, DJ, and person. So I think paying homage also to those that came before you, to those that paved the way, and remaining humble to that regard is important. But then, also being able to constantly add a couple of new interesting names as opening acts, people that have put in the work and clearly are participating in the scene. I think that's all important. And that's part of the promoter's job if he really wants his local scene to thrive and he really cares about it.
Sure, that's something that I enjoy seeing that as well too. That for every lineup, if you want to call it the big hitters, and then you have that local, like, to me it's like a big name too, like Sarah Strandberg, Giselle Mesme, Jeremy Senna, Motionin, which is I know their names. It's like Altered Being and Carlos. Is that Carlos?
Carlos is Altered Being, and then Matt Sekus.
Okay, Sekus. So
yeah. They're. I mean, again, all of these acts that you mentioned are fantastic DJs and producers. Some of them. I mean, Motion, and I think they're incredibly talented in their style of techno. And
shout out to Motion and Aesthetic Limited, which is their label.
Aesthetic Limited has done fantastic releases. So, I mean, I feel like it's when I book certain acts that really fit their sound, I feel like it would almost be silly not to book them, because in LA they're the perfect representation for that sound. So for this party that we have this Saturday, by the time this comes out, will be over, but we have Louis Fauci, we have Mike Parker. It's that deep hypnotic kind of techno, and they're perfect. They're perfect to represent that LA in that lineup. So that's how we also see it. It's like the person that's opening represents Los Angeles to the eyes of the people that are playing after them, but also for the people on the dance floor. So it's always having a little slice of LA
yes.
in our lineups, I think, is important.
I know that's something that I enjoy, because a lot of people are like, what makes you want to go for literally from the beginning of the event to even I guess the most that you can handle, and you can be able to I don't say physically as well too, because
of course. They're long, they're 8 hours plus events sometimes.
Yes, true. And that's something I always do. Me and my friend, for Speedy, because unfortunately I did not attend the first Speedy J event, but I heard all the the sweatiness, the hotness. But me, I just sweat wherever, so that's gonna be like no question out about it. So I did go to the Speedy J for this year, pre 4th of July. And that's one thing that I also, shout out that you guys always put those big old fans, because you'll catch me there for sure.
Yeah, we try. I mean, we know it's important. Again, I mean, that's something that not everybody does, and it's not to toot our own horn, but we want people that come to our parties to be and feel comfortable. And we've learned from that first Speedy J event. We've learned from it, and I think we've progressed a lot. And, this is LA. It's a hot city, especially in summer, and finding spaces with air conditioning, it's fantastic when we do, but it's rare. It's hard. So, sometimes I do think that the people bear that in mind, mostly. The real people that understand and do bear it in mind. We understand if people don't want to come because of it sometimes, but, I mean, we spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on fans alone. I mean,
Yeah.
It's we do think about it. We pay people to put fans up and around the venue. It's
and it's several fans too. It's not just like one.
Industrial.
Yes.
We've rented AC units.
Oh wow.
Portable AC units from Home Depot and things like that. So it's we think about these things. It's, you know, again, we cannot. It's not about the money, but if we go broke throwing these parties, then we're not able to throw parties again. So it's important to understand that while it's always about the music and putting music first and foremost, and we should never violate that and keep our musical integrity in, it's also about doing the responsible business things. I'm sure that probably out there somewhere there's air-conditioned, state-of-the-art warehouse spaces, but it would not be feasible to always use them because of the budget, you know.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, you know, we've all experienced these, and I think we already know what to expect. Exactly. So it's, you know,
you go in with the expectation. Don't wear jeans if it was 98 degrees during the day.
That's me.
Some people do that, and they're like, I should have worn shorts. I'm like, I always wear shorts. Wear shorts. Wear a t-shirt. Wear a tank.
There was one time I remember. It's already like several hours into but it was an incognito event, and I remember I'm trying to lift my pants up, and literally it was just like soaking wet that it was like the pants stuck to my foot. And every time I tell everybody, they're like, that is gross. I'm like, hey, but it was a dope.
Yeah, I mean, that means you were dancing.
Yes, it was like nonstop.
You were having a good time, and
yeah.
I mean, some of those are the best nights. As I said, the Speedy J last year, it was sweaty. It was a tad bit uncomfortable, maybe very uncomfortable for some. But consistently, a lot of people said it was their best party of the year, musically and just the whole thing, because it was kind of like, you know what, F it. I don't know if I can swear here.
No, yeah. No, you can.
It was like, you know, fuck it. It's hot. We may die, but at least we're gonna die like dancing to Speedy J. That kind of feel, that made it special because you could feel that in the air.
Well, I remember just seeing that picture that, you know, you just see the just massive amount of people. You can even spot, like, it's like kind of like what is it? What are those? Oh, like, you know, when you're trying to look for something, what were those?
Waldo.
I Spy, Waldo, I Spy books, whatever. You can try to see if you can find your friends who's there and everything. I'm like, wow. And it's one of those pictures that you look back, like, I wish I experienced it. So that's why when it was this year, I'm like, I'm not missing.
We're already working on bringing him back next year. So
for this, this is just like a side question. And for this year, because he played for 5 hours, correct? 4 to 5 hours.
It was definitely 4. I don't know. I think he went over a little bit. Yeah.
Did you ask him? You're like, hey, do you want to go a little bit?
Well, we
more or
generally
longer?
When you do the contract with the artist, you book a time.
Okay.
But if he wants to go longer, he can, as long as we can with the venue or with the space, you know. But you know, if we have basically like one of our not locals necessarily, but a resident,
yeah.
So a member of the promotion group playing after an artist, but the guest artist, in this case Speedy J, wants to keep playing. He played extra the first year.
Okay.
He went 30-45 minutes extra. And of course, you know, I think it was Gerard who played after, didn't have a problem. I mean, he's part of Incognito, so he was like, yeah, sure, keep playing, of course. If anything, we prefer it.
Yeah, Gerard played this year as well, too, right? And that's when I say Gerard, is Gerard, not Gerald. Yeah, his artist name.
His artist name, yeah. So if an artist wants to play longer, then he plays. That means he's enjoying the show and whatever. But, you know, 4 hours is already a long time. So I think this year he may have gone a few minutes extra. I don't really recall. But he had a fantastic time, per usual.
Yeah, I remember just playing that number. And I think me and my friend, you know, we just, you know, we always like, just, you know, probably out of our minds, but we were just watching, you know, and we're thinking, like, did Marco ask him if he was going to play longer? Is he going to play longer? You know, but then that's when I think he ended, and you saw Gerard start prepping. We're like, okay, he's going to go on as well, too. So we reached the end of it. I know you're a busy man. You're a busy person as well, too.
I've enjoyed the chat.
We've gone over the hour, so... But is awesome.
But if you have more questions, you're more than welcome to ask. If we've talked about everything.
No, I think basically we covered most of. Cool. You know, we covered the ADs. So, but is there anything that we did not cover that you would like to let the listeners know, and me specifically as well too?
I think if I can say one last thing, and this is something that I've been stressing on social media a lot. Having worked in this industry in more than one city, I think the most important thing for a local music scene, electronic music scene, is for people to work together, to collaborate, to support one another. Oftentimes we compete. Oftentimes we win bookings over another promoter. Oftentimes we have bigger promoters taking a bigger slice of the local scene than smaller promoters. But I think if we view the scene as a whole as an ecosystem, and if we understand, just like in the animal kingdom and animal plant kingdom in nature, that if the ecosystem is stable and everything and everybody does their part, everybody wins in a way. Everything flows properly, everything works, and the scene can flourish and prosper and do better. It's easy, I think, for people, especially those with really high standards or those who have been in the scene longer, to feel aggravated or air their grievances on Twitter, or to forget to look at the bigger picture. And I think as we move forward, it is important for this spirit of collaboration and camaraderie between everybody involved, with it, whether it's in the local LA scene, whether it's in Southern California, and the United States, to understand that everybody's important and is an important piece in this ecosystem. And this is something that I've made mistakes on in the past. I've tweeted things in the past that I shouldn't have, maybe making fun of other promoters or other lineups and things like that. And that wasn't right. I just ask that people just take a look at what's good for everybody and understand that there's a lot of people that are passionate about the music. It doesn't mean we all have to work together, but we should all respect one another and collaborate and work and support each other when we can. Not everybody in the scene is a good person, just like with any industry or with any job or company, right? I mean, there's always going to be a small percentage of people that are not about it and have the wrong intentions. But if we do all work together, and if we do speak to one another and do our best to foster this spirit in a constructive way, I think we're all set to win from it. Again, I've made the mistake in the past of being divisive. I've made the mistake in the past of creating an us versus them thing, and I think that was wrong, and I've learned from that mistake, and I would like to pass that lesson on to other people who may be listening to this. We're all in this because we love the music, and if that is really the case, if an artist could be doing something better, if a promoter could be doing something better, if a DJ, a producer, somebody in security, a door person, whatever, if anybody somebody on the dance floor, if anybody could be doing anything better, and you have some constructive criticism, voice it in a constructive way so that things can improve. There's many ways of doing that wrong, and there's a few ways of doing that right, but it's very simple. Communication usually solves most of the problems in our industry and in today's world at large.
Just in general, yeah, communication is
key. It's key. Communicating, tweeting an empty thing at the back of a party, complaining about something, doesn't solve anything. DM the company that's throwing the party or the venue. Find somebody's security. Find the promoter if you know him personally, and tell him, hey, there's a sloppy guy that's harassing somebody, or he's dancing into other people, or he's spilling drinks over people. And so we can do something about it, because oftentimes if you have several hundred people in a room, you can't keep an eye on everybody. Yeah, course, you know, we're running around like taking care of sound, lights, artists, the door. I'm restocking toilet paper in the porta potties. I mean, all of these different things, bringing ice in, taking care of the artists. So if somebody is doing something that they shouldn't, and you notice it, do the right thing and speak about it with the person that can do something about it. And if you can, do something about it yourself right there and then. But I think if we all do our part, and we realize that even the people on the dance floor are an integral part of our community, because it is a community, and of our scene, and we all wear our little hat. some have more responsibility than others. As a promoter, I have more than the person that has paid a ticket to be there. I get it. But if you want something changed, I think that's the right mentality to have. And I think by no means are our parties or any parties in LA or ever perfect. There's always room for improvement, and we want to improve. We want to constantly bring a better experience to people that come to our parties. So, if you're listening to this, if you ever feel kind of annoyed by anything or you feel something is not right, if you speak about it to us, I guarantee you that I'm not going to ignore you. If you tell me something at a party of mine, even if it's not my party, but you see me there and I'm just in the back dancing and something's not right, tell us. And more importantly, if it's anything to do with harassment, physical or verbal, that has no place in our parties and in our communities. So we definitely want to make sure that that never happens, but it takes all of us doing our little part.
And that's proper. I agree with that big time. Communicating. You might see something. But instead of just going on Twitter, subtweeting, the company or the promoter, communicate with them. And I think that will fix the problem, avoid that issue that to not occur again as well too. So I completely agree with that as well.
And some people do. It's not like it doesn't happen. I've had people message Facebook and say, on Facebook say, hey, I noticed last night this and that happened, and I immediately tell our head of security so it doesn't happen again. I've noticed people DM on Twitter saying, hey, like this person is tripping over the CDJs at the front, and I've seen it on Twitter, and I've gone there, and the person was taken outside and made, to chill out and explain, and if needed, removed from the premises if he's disturbing people. It's the little things. We all want everybody there to have a good time, but we need everybody's help and everybody to do their part.
Facts. And that's cool. You actually give the person, the chance to kind of like maybe explain themselves. So, what's...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, look, we've all been drunk, okay? We've all pre-gamed before a party too much and arrived there a little bit too wasted. It happens. We were all younger and a bit more sloppy. We were all new to the scene and not as respectful. We all held up our phone with a flash by mistake, or just held up our phone taking a long video at a party before that can disturb others. So we've all done it. And if we understand that sometimes all it takes is conversation to solve something, and that conversation has to be directed at someone, not empty, thrown on Twitter or Facebook or talked in between friends, but directed so something can be done, then we can do something about it. Otherwise, I mean, if I'm at the door because there's a rush of people, or I'm cleaning the toilets or bringing ice in or taking care of the artists, and something's going on, and then you get mad that I didn't do anything about it, or none of the staff did because we didn't see it. We didn't see it. Yeah. Otherwise, of course we would have. It's our job. And the last thing we want is for people to not have a good time at our parties. So I think, and that goes from our parties to the overall scene, and our overall community.
Well, that's respectful right there. And then the cool thing is that, for me personally, because, not everybody has to agree with me or agree with this, but I'm glad, there's somebody, educated like you and conscious as well, too, of what is needed to run proper as well, too. So thank you for, giving us all these parties and events as well, too, because, I recognize, I'm in it because of the music, and I know I'm going to be in it for a long run, and it's going to be a long run. So I thank you for that as well, too.
Of course,
and I know there's got to be a lot of more people as well thankful for you as well.
Thanks for the opportunity. I thank everybody that comes to our events, that supports the scene in LA, 6 a.m., Synthetic Minds Compound, and that gives us a way to be able to bring this music here. We wouldn't be able to do it without the people like you and all the people that come to our events and support. So it's really appreciated, and thank you for giving me this platform to be able to share my thoughts, ideas, and experiences. And I hope it can be helpful to whoever's listening.
Well, because initially this interview was supposed to be a school project, but it was going to be more like education, business form, questions formulated. But once that didn't happen, I'm like, okay, I'm still going to save it for the podcast, and I want to be more in depth, to hopefully with this interview, this conversation, people get to, they're not going to completely get to know you, but they're going to be able to see what your motives and mission is, in the scene that you're in as well too.
Awesome.
And thank you again. So
well, wicked. Thank you.
Cool. Well, hope to see you later on and later this weekend as well too.
Yeah,
so.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you.